Back with another video. It's your boy DJ back with another one. And I'm back. Every my settings should all be fixed. I was making videos and they were not making them public. I'd have to go back in with every video and change it to um make them public as soon as I get done with them. So I don't know. And there was also like you couldn't comment on my videos because it was saying that they were selected uh for kids to watch. So it just disabled comments, which is stupid. I also don't know when this happened because it just started to happen out of nowhere. I never went in to YouTube to change the settings to make it do that. It just out of nowhere started happening that way. I don't really know why, but that should all be fixed. So um, if you're wanting to comment on my videos, you can comment on them, and you're gonna have immediate access to them once they're done. Specifically the lives. Um, and they will be done. And so there won't be this long pause in between when I make the video, in the video, and when you see it. So I was also thinking recently about starting my own Discord. And the reason for that is because, uh, I mean, I've been in plenty of Discords, and a lot of the conversations that people have, they're just not really. There's really no point to them. That's one thing I've noticed. There's not a lot of constructive conversations going on, and that's kind of frustrating. Or people won't really talk consistently. You'll go through ebbs and flows where people will want to be more engaged in VCs than other times, which I think is true with people in general. I mean, people are busy, and so I've been busy. I've also not been on Discord for long periods of time just to get away from it. But it's good to have a change in the actual dialogue style and method, uh, moving from just sending long texts back and forth, which is the most frustrating way of communicating. I hate that way of communicating. It's stupid and slow. I can't. I hate texting people in general. Like it's very frustrating. Picking the phone up is way quicker. Even a voice message or voice memo is way quicker. Um, it just is a better quality of communicating, I think, objectively. But so I was thinking, like, yeah, potentially starting a pretty generic kind of Discord where we'll talk about. I'm still kicking the can in my head about whether to do this, but it'd be very generic. I mean, I think we would still talk about similar stuff, talking about socionics, personality theory, different typologies, religion, politics, philosophy, basically everything that I'm personally interested in. But I think has a lot of broad interest, and just having conversations about it or debating about it. If you have people who have completely different opinions, instead of doing this ad hominem, I don't like you, stupid, childish um, way of conversing, it's like, okay, well, how about you just get on the phone for 30 minutes and do exactly what you're doing, but just through a conversation. That just seems more constructive. So I've been thinking about doing that. I just like engaging with people over the live too, and that's where I just kind of got the idea of just having this kind of conversation back and forth with people. Um, we'll see. I'm entering into an extremely busy season of my life, so that might not be the smartest decision, but gosh, at the very least, to have some kind of Discord that's there if people want to benefit from it, or I don't have to be uber active on it for other people to benefit from it. Um, Even if it was my server, I don't. It's not necessary. Even though I'd be very tempted to be on it pretty consistently. But Um, don't do it. So that's what I've been thinking about recently. Um, I don't even know where that started. I think it's just, what are you doing? Some people should not have their license. It's like most people shouldn't have their license. Not even some people. Most people. You know what? Most people that are stupid drivers should be immediately confronted about them being stupid drivers. You should get out of your car and ask them, why do you have your license? Why do you think it's okay for you to drive being that dumb? I don't think it's safe for you and other people. If you're roaming the streets in a vehicle that's moving at dangerous speeds when you don't have when your brain doesn't work. Um, but um, yeah. So I'm thinking about the idea of making a Discord server, just so that when I'm personally, selfishly bored, and hopefully we build a culture of uh having conversations and debating and doing regular VCs that don't have to be structured. They don't actually have to have necessarily um a topic per se, that can kind of come out just from the conversations and the interest that we already have, socionics, all this kind of stuff. And then you naturally get into those conversations, but that only happens when you build a culture of having consistent dialogue. If you don't have that kind of culture in VCs or in Discord, everyone gets accustomed to just texting back and forth. And you're like, stop texting back and forth. Stop arguing. I would prohibit any kind of stupid argument that is like text arguments to me are they're just trifling. They're pathetic. They're kind of weak. It's like, no, if you disagree with somebody, then you need to get in a voice chat and verbally say it. Say it out loud, not anonymously, not via behind a little keyboard. Like I loathe that. So, not that there isn't a time and place for but when it's the common way that people argue online, that's just I can't s- I can't stand it. Um, so I was thinking about that, and then I'm trying to think about what else. Yesterday, we were talking about um a lot of different things. Honestly, I was talking about people who value methodology for its own sake. You can see this in people that are attracted to certain fad diets where they simply just change normal, you know, diets for extreme diets, or extreme, novel new weight equipment, instead of doing the basic strength training stuff that people have told you about. The fundamental movements, squats, freaking rows, freaking bench press, just very normal but effective ways of getting stronger and getting in shape. It doesn't have to be these new and exciting, provocative um uh means or fad diets. It's like people get I mean, most people are dumb though. I think dumb people, this is true, dumb and impulsive. That is the targeted audience and market for these weird fads in, the fitness industry, and get on this diet or that diet, or carnivore only diet, um or get this new Bowflex that has all these different attachments and all this da 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 da, and it's all geared for short term benefit and use, and that's why they're one so expensive. Um, and because what actually works is not usually what's popular. What actually works is not usually exciting. And when you're trying to get in shape, your emotions don't matter. How you feel doesn't matter. If you're trying to get in shape, and I'm kind of preaching to myself, basically to bully myself to get back into lifting. But these are things of observations I had when I was in the process that's actually kind of strengthened my mentality where I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to eat the food that was in front of me because it had no flavor. And then I started looking at the facts of the case and I realized that the food in front of me objectively gave me what my body needed to build muscle and to burn fat. And then when I realized that the food that I'm eating is actually giving me what I need, exactly what I need, then my subjective attitude towards what I'm eating doesn't make any difference. Who cares? I could change my attitude about it once I know the benefits of it. And even if I don't, my attitude stays the same. You can cry while you're eating food that's going to give you 30 grams of protein. That's fine. You can cry about it, but you're getting the food down and it's going into your stomach. Um, and so everything, uh, and I'm kind of interested in the fitness industry in general because I feel like there's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of uh there's a lot of fluff, and I loathe the fluff in really anything. When you have a bunch of con men that come in that already have the results that you want to have, they can sell you anything. Obviously, they just point to their six pack and they're like, "Hey, bro, I got this six pack abs by eating uh 500 grams of protein a day. It's called the new 500-gram diet." And then you try that diet and then you puke up 75% of the food that you eat and you're just there blubbering and you're like, I don't understand why I can't look like that. That guy said he did. So the point is, whenever you see someone that's gotten to that level, you need to be somewhat weary because you're more susceptible to being naive and taken advantage of. Um, just get on Ozempic. Yeah, bruh, don't even get me started. That's a clean, that's a precise rage bait. Um, yeah, no, Ozempic for the majority of people is the weakest solution I have ever heard in my entire life. First of all, most of the people that take Ozempic, it's not even for, obviously, for like weight loss is a side effect, but it's for diabetes. I'm pretty sure. A lot of those weight loss drugs are for usages not applicable to the person taking it most of the time. Um, the people look maybe slightly better, sometimes look worse when they after they take Ozempic because their body just like their muscle mass is apt they look like a bag of bones. And it's just fundamentally weak where it's like losing weight really like when you it's really actually not that hard. It really isn't. And this is part of the issue. People have made the fitness industry, whether it's workout equipment or certain diet programs and all this kind of stuff, people have made so much money uh making the average person think that losing weight is so much harder than it is. And therefore it expands their product line. They can sell you anything because you think that losing weight is something only highly certified individuals can accomplish. And it's like, no, bro, it's actually super easy. You get in your own way. You're the problem. The method is not the problem. The fundamentals aren't the problem. You are. So then you realize why you're the problem. You're the problem because you want to bitch and complain about not putting in work which is not that hard of work. And again, I'm roasting myself. Um, this also kind of gets me back in the gym. It really does by basically bitching out loud, and then it kind of boomerangs back at me. Like you're a fat motherfucker. um, but you don't want to eat a little less. You don't want to start doing this, and you think you have all these. And it's some of it's fair. You think you have to do it the right way, the exact way. The reality is, You can't start to. There's no point for you to be hypercritical if you have no momentum. If you haven't done anything, there's nothing for you to critique. It doesn't even follow for you to critique. Critiquing something, it presupposes you have some real experience with it. If you don't, then you know, now that can be debated. But in the most ideal context, someone critiques something they know a decent amount or a lot about, right? They don't just critique. Otherwise, the value of your critique goes down. If you don't know what you're talking about, no one cares about your opinions about that thing. That's like a talk show radio host um who some of those guys, like Skip Bayless, for example, they always roast him like, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, there are certain objective aspects of the game that he can know about just because he's not good or wasn't good at basketball doesn't mean that he can't know what he's talking about, but he has some real experience with it. That's why people weigh what he is saying or whatever. So the point is, people don't want to get into. Uh, they start critiquing every part of why they don't want to do a diet or cut calories, or then I'm going to have to change this, and then I'm going to have to change this, and it's like, yeah, well, change is always going to happen. You're already making a bunch of changes currently, and those changes are hurting you. So why don't you make a change that's benefiting you and that's theoretically easier than what you're doing now? Um, and I just have no motivation. Who cares? Your motivation doesn't matter, actually. I don't have motivation either. And I can't let that, I just need to go to the gym. And I know I get in weird situations where mentalities where like I'm everybody else, where you just keep telling yourself you're gonna do it. You just keep telling yourself da 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 da. And then eventually you have to say, I'm not even gonna think about or even start talking that way. I'm just gonna go to the fucking gym. That's what I'm gonna do. I don't care how I feel. I'm just gonna go to the fucking gym. Um, and then motivation builds over time the more disciplined you are. But I never you should never trust in motivation. I think motivation is one of the most fickle, most variable, most unpredictable factors of doing anything you want to do. It's almost worth not even thinking of. Like if you if you are motivated to do something, just be like, that's pretty cool. Today was a little, don't even think today was a little easier. It's like, okay, I have a little bit more energy now, but who cares? Because I need to do this regardless of my energy levels. I need to do this regardless of whether I want to or not. So if I am more motivated now than I was yesterday, that's effectively meaningless to me if I'm disciplined. Um, so when I first started, I don't even know how we started getting into fitness. When I first started, uh, I was only motivationally driven, which is everybody when they're in trying to get in fitness and get in shape. Um, and then I realized how bad of a tool motivation really was. And then I started abandoning that mentality by just not caring about my emotions and saying, okay, well, what does it actually mean for me to be motivated to do anything? Is that requisite for me to do anything? If the answer is no, then why do I care about whether I'm motivated to do something? Well, who cares? Right? I just need to do it. And then if motivation happens, okay, again, it's like a little gift. I guess it gives you a little bit more fuel. It gives you a little bit more purpose, I guess. Not even really, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but Yeah, Ozempic, bro, don't take that that is not a solution. That'll hurt you in the long run. Most people don't need it. That's a punk way about going about losing weight. Um, and people have it's also devaluing what a person's capable of doing. Like human beings are capable of incredible feats, and when we take shortcuts for certain things that really aren't hard to do, another example could be outsourcing thinking to AI in areas where we don't need to outsource it. That's a weakening of what it means to be a human being. God has given us tools and faculties and reasoning and all of these things because we reflect what he's like. We're image bearers of God. Why am I using, why am I outsourcing all those things that are natural to me that I can actually do with some hard work to something that's, we don't even know what this thing is, a highly complicated, complex computer. Um, that's not a sentient being. It reflects no image. You could say AI is a reflection of us, our creation of some sort. Um, I guess I don't even know. But um, why am I doing that? Now there are some limitations I might actually have, but even still, why don't you talk to someone who you know is smarter than you? Maybe they have. I mean, in theory, they're closer to truth, whatever you want to call it, closer to adjacent knowledge of things so that they have a better probability of knowing that thing more than you do because they're just smarter. Whatever. Find a smarter person to talk to. That's more benefiting you as a person because they have so many more real qualities that you relate to because you're a human being, not a computer. Um, and so we just look for short, quick, immediate fixes. And it's like, dude, man, you got some short material here. Obviously, not working out has been bothering you. Some short material. I don't know what you mean by short material. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it definitely has. It's not even just me, but I just mean in general. It's the idea of um because I was talking about this the last time I was on, just um the idea of like being fixated on certain methods to do things instead of doing it. Just that idea frustrates me. It does in a sense because I need to get back in the gym and I have a lot of pent up energy. There's no doubt about that. I'm not bothered, but it's the idea that's annoying to me. And some people have given me some what's the word? Rage bait shirts. You got some shirts material here. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Shorts, short videos. Now, I actually started making shorter videos on purpose. One, because I thought people would be more interested in short form videos. Um, just because I mean, it holds people's attention longer, and it actually puts more of a demand on me to get to the point or load up as much good information in the video as I can. I just changed that probably maybe a year ago. But in my lives, I've just recently started making longer form lives. And that's partially because I've been seeing real people instead of bots in my lives. Or at least maybe they always were real people and I assume they were bots, so I've been engaging with them longer, and therefore the video's gone on longer. Um, but yeah, my lives usually they used to be a lot longer, but I've been trying to cut down the length of the video just to make it a little bit more that there's more individual points that I'm making throughout the video instead of just unguided rambling. Um, but I mean, engage like this is the most fun. I love being able to engage with real people on the lives because it kind of brings up new conversations and launching launching pads into different areas of conversation, whatever. But yeah, it's just the idea again of Ozempic and just like people getting on fad diets or um this can apply broadly, even training dogs. This is the whole video basically I was talking about that I made yesterday or a couple days ago. Um, yeah, I mean, watching this girl yesterday, or a couple days ago. Wait, what day was that? I made the video yesterday, I think, but me and my fiance met this dog that we're thinking about getting with this girl, her owner, and God love her. Bruh, she was struggling to control this dog. Just clip your lives. It's good content. Just clip your lives. Yeah, I can. I don't really do that normally, but um, uh, yeah, I could. I could do that. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah, bruh. It was a German Shepherd, and she's a gorgeous dog. This dog walked in, and she was going berserk, and she's like just yanking on this leash and like petting her while she's barking. Just a whole bunch of bad training procedures or whatever. And she didn't know any better. But I'm like, bruh, that dog doesn't trust you. And it's just a German Shepherd. So you need to be very on point with training, especially if you're training a reactive dog and protective dog. I'm like, dude, it was like I was like 3 seconds away from just being like, just give me this leash. Because it was rough to watch. But, um, but yeah, I might think about clipping I've always seen that. I never really gave it too much attention, but I'm always open to doing more, different things to make content better for people as much as I can. I'm pretty busy, but and I'm only gonna get way busier. But yeah, I should do that. I got really invested in the editing world a couple years ago. That was really fun for a time, but I was spending so much time on it. I just need to do a little touch ups here and there. But is this Carmine the dude that got typed by Jack? Are you the guy that's in LIE that got typed by Jack? I'm curious. Dude, I'm very tempted to smoke some Black and Milds. I haven't had a inhalable smoke in so long, and that sounds so good right now. Even though every time I go back to these, it tastes like absolute dog shit. But am I tempted to do it? Yes. Am I going to do it? Probably not, because I'm lazy, and that would require me to go get a lighter, which I'm not really interested in doing. I'm surprised I don't have one in. Oh, nice, bro. Are you still identifying as LIE? I was one of the guys when I first saw your video. I thought Jack mistyped you. I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were LSE. I'd have. I'm curious about going back and watching. It's been a while since I've seen that video, but like your follow up with him. But yeah, that's the one thing that Jack. I think Jack is definitely probably one of the better sociologists in terms of typing. There was a stint where it seemed kind of like he was uh using his follow-ups, like he was a little bit too open-ended with his conclusions. It didn't really press people enough to draw out what they mean, and in theory someone could be a different type than the one that he thinks they are because he didn't put enough pressure in order to squeeze that out. But I think since he's been doing these celebrity typings, albeit the ones that people request, the celebrities they request, are usually tremendously boring. Most uninteresting selection of celebrities I've ever seen in my life. Like, if I get another comic book person on there, I might pull my hair in my head. I'm like, please, can we diversify this? Come on now. Dude, it's a bunch of ILIs that don't talk. Like, and then like they're like people that are so obscure they don't appeal to who they're not a very objective reference point. Or everybody be like, oh, I know of that person. I'd be curious about what that celebrity's type is, not some obscure Marvel writer where you're like, I don't care what his type is. But um, but I think since he's been doing those have been pretty good. But yeah, yeah. So are you still identify as LIE? I recognize the name. I was curious. Howdy K, what he typed to me as I haven't been following Socians much lately. I like looking at functions without type. That's fair. He initially typed you LSC, I believe, and then you guys had a follow up. This was probably 3 years ago, and you guys had a follow up, and he retyped you as an LIE. That's fair though. Gosh. Yeah, man. I go in ebbs and flows. What happened with Axis 12? Oh, who knows, brother? Axis J is always doing stuff. I guess they have a new server. I'm in the server, but they had I don't know who's still there, besides, well, me, Jay. There's some random people I don't really know. They had like a VC, I think, yesterday. But normally it's pretty quiet. And I think Jay's still working out his theory, I guess. I'm not really sure about all of the Axis um stuff. But I'm always kind of looking around in Discord to find VCs. Um, and I mean, there's not that much anymore. Not that are like consistent, not that are having interesting conversations consistently. Not probably NTJ have been but typed it by most systems. Fair enough. That's what I used to get in MBTI. I used to get ENTJ and then jumped around everywhere. And then a couple friends who knew socionics were like, "You're an SLE." Like, okay, I don't know what that is, but sounds legit, brother. It sounds legit. I've been typed so many times. Crazy. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, yeah, but that weight, bruh. I keep nailing that conversation, but and that really applies in so many different areas where people care more about the process, which than the result. No pun intended. Not trying to get Ryan in here, but um, and I can relate to that to a certain extent. In certain areas, there are certain contexts where your process matters, and I'm not even saying that it doesn't when you're trying to lose weight. There is a process. There is an education phase where you have to actually do a bunch of research. You don't actually have to do that to lose weight, but it is helpful to learn about what methods are better than others. If you're doing body recomposition, which is kind of a math game, um, again, you can still accomplish body fat recomposition naturally without having to research really anything. Your body communicates information automatically to you, and if you're trained to respond to it, like not overeating when your stomach feels full, stop eating. Um, that's one example when your body when you feel like you need to drink, when you need rest, like all those things, your body is constantly sending you signals um of of a demanded response, and you can train that. That's a skill set. So you don't have to do a bunch of research. Let us know when you start the Discord, man. We'll collab. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It would just be a very basic Discord where we can talk about really anything, but the focus is actually getting like talking to people. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna disable text. It just means that people should be moved from texting about something to, if you have the time, like jump on a Discord, like or jump on a VC. Um, but uh, but back to the body fat recomp stuff. I was just curious about what would be the fastest way and the most effective way to get where I want to. I don't want to have barriers in my way that um keep me from getting where I need to be. And that could be a motivational barrier, like I just talked about, the mental barrier, emotional barrier of valuing motivation over discipline. That's a mental barrier. It's a emotional barrier, and then it's a physical barrier. If you're trying to lose fat and you're telling yourself, I don't have the motivation to lose fat, that's a blockade. That's something that's blocking you from the goal. And you have to remove that. Which takes will, and you have to just say, okay, well, if this is limiting me, and every time I go to the gym or think about going to the gym, I start to drag my feet and I tell myself, well, I'm not motivated, therefore I'm not going. That can't be a premise or an argument, whatever you want to call it, a statement that you allow in your brain. At some point, you just have to say, I just don't feel motivated. Okay, so what? What's the value in it? The value in it could be just expressing it. Okay, yeah, you get out some steam, translate that steam into productivity, into going to the gym and taking it out on the weights, or using that as extra fuel for your workout, instead of which is a more positive outlook on it, instead of having that be the argument as of why you don't go to the gym, for example, or do anything. um and I'm not claiming that I apply this kind of thinking everywhere. There's certain areas in my life that I need to apply it more. And so a lot of times when I'm on here complaining about things, it's if I can tell that there's that deficiency in myself, and it is somewhat lived experience. When I was getting in shape, I did go through that process of being like, why am I even why am I even you so what? So what? I don't feel like going to the gym. So what does that make any difference? So what if I, you know, if we get this dog, for example, okay, she might bark a lot. Okay, well, so do the pros outweigh the cons? If they do, then you figure it out. Then you figure out a solution. You're like, okay, well, that means that there's a demand placed back on me if I don't want this kind of behavior, which it's gonna take work. Um, but if it's a positive endeavor, then you just deal with the work that you need to do, and then you receive all the benefits later. That's just how that works. Um, but yeah, bruh. Like, before you even start thinking about excuses, and I did this as a kid too. My dad, man, he was, if I like try to get out of football practice or whatever, he would just pick me up back from my house and would just take me to foot. Like, get your ass out in the field, bro. Like, we're not doing that shit. um, but you just can't let it's easier said than done, but excuses and thoughts can be parasitical. They can eat at you and they affect what you do. And that's basic, but it's powerful. It's like, okay, well, how do I stop letting my thoughts dictate my actions? And say, I don't care what I'm thinking in this moment. I'm going to do this, and that's just going to be the end of it. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to run. I don't want to. Don't. So you know, who cares that you don't want to do that? That doesn't make any difference. So I've beaten the horse many times. It's bleeding out of its mouth now. The horse is just dead beyond recovery. Can't come back from. And so, moving back to the broader point that I've already made 1,000 times, um, methods are good. Having different ways of doing something can be beneficial. Having too many ways of doing something can be counterproductive. Um, the whole point of a method is to find the most effective action to take in a situation, and that's the extent of you're needing to think about different ways of doing things. That's the only reason you need to do that. I know once I start HVAC, I was watching a video on, again, this is probably not interesting to anybody, but I was watching a video on, what makes a good technician. The guy was talking about um, being able to diagnose a problem, being able to recreate a problem in order to diagnose a problem, an actual problem, the problem, which takes a lot of testing. And it also takes second guessing yourself in a healthy way, not constantly second guessing yourself where you it leads you to uncertainty, complete agnosticism about what's going on, but you second guess yourself enough so that you can move towards a solution, and you're checking your work, you're working through the process. um you're just creating natural checks for yourself, and that's supposed to help you to act and do the thing that needs to be done, whether that's checking where there's a leak in a you know in a HVAC unit, whether something's not getting powered appropriately, how the lack of power affects the mechanical parts of the unit. um if there's not airflow coming out of a vent, why is that happening? What should be happening? And trying to either recreate the problem and use the process of elimination to identify the problem. It's all these kind of processes and procedures that are not just endless speculations. That's the point. They're not just these open-ended questions that have no answers. They're constructive questions that are asked in order to find the answer, in order to find the solution. And then that compounds over time. The more you work through the process and see similar problems, you're in theory going to be able to draw from past experience in order to, one, quicker, more quickly identify the problem, and as a result, more quickly create a solution. But it's compounded knowledge. You might come across a more novel issue or problem, and you have all this data to work from and to pull from in order to solve the problem. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about before. But um, yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I should add some new points here. Um, and that obviously relates to, in some way, you can correlate this with um, different quadras and the way they approach certain situations of, Delta Quadra, for example, has um wants to, generally speaking, this is more the Delta STs, but is trying to fix real problems um with something physical in front of them, and it requires a lot of experience, hands-on observation, touching, feeling, um working with materials in order to figure out how things should actually operate. And that kind of gets into the intellectual philosophy of the Delta Quadra, which is being pretty agnostic towards philosophical claims about the nature of truth. To them, what is true is what works, and something could break down that once worked, and you have to change your method. You have to adapt. You have to experiment. and do all these kinds of things, which is a very delta way of thinking about the world and you know, all that kind of jazz. And so in that way, deltas and betas are have a different philosophy of truth. Betas are absolutists and kind of uh, more about certain intellectual certainty, whereas deltas are more open-ended and more about experimentation and context dependent degrees of knowledge, degrees of certainty, form of knowledge. Um, yeah. Then you have alphas that are kind of in between the two, and gammas who are well, they're gammas and alphas are in between the two in a oppositional sense. I guess I don't know. I could go into it, but gammas have certainty more about people's character or value-based judgments, whereas um, alphas have very little uh, concrete, absolute judgments about people's character. And the reason alpha is in between delta and beta is because with it obviously with the TIFE, they're looking at universal laws and um, logics and um, want to be expressive and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, yeah, that's just how I mean alphas don't take uh, they don't make harsh judgments about people's character, whereas obviously gammas do. But what else? What are you guys thinking? I got two people in here. What are you guys' thoughts? I just have no motivation. Jessica, love it. Got some shorts here. Yeah, they would make for good shorts. Just me yelling at the screen. Just do it. Just do it. My problem is, if I don't have like it's hard for me to get motivated, pun intended, towards action if I don't have a concrete outcome that I'm looking for. So, which is kind of oxymoronic, but when I um when I first started getting into shape, I had no end natural like transition. It was like how do I explain it? My whole goal was to get a six pack. And I wanted to get a six pack because I thought that was a good challenge. It was very concrete. It was it was realistic. I wasn't like obese. And I knew that I could do it. I just had never done it before and I needed to figure out how to do it. But once I got to that point, I didn't really have any reason to sustain it because I thought that the end would be better than what it was. it was almost as if the the challenge wasn't what I thought it would be, because it was easier than I thought. Once I understood the rules and I understood the information, um, it was hard initially, but then, and that's kind of what fueled me. And then when I realized that it didn't have any lasting challenge to it, and I was getting close, the closer and closer I got to the end, the more uninterested I became. And so once I got to the end, I was just kind of like, well, now what do I do? And I just didn't sustain it. I went right back to eating a bunch of food, and I should have had another kind of goal after that of like, now this goal is sustaining it, and that would have. So it's almost like goals that I have sometimes are blocked in time, where they're just like they're very like this, like disconnected, um, which in theory can lead you into different, to abandoning a goal, or getting done and not knowing what other goal to pursue. And I was just kind of like, what's the point now? What do I do? I was just kind of aimless and didn't know where to put my energies. Um, and it should have been something like a mini bulk, or jumping back to maintenance. Um, I need things to train for. I need a reason to do things. And if I don't have a reason to do things, I just don't care that much. Um, So if I were That's why I love training, even though sometimes the training in sports was more enjoyable than the game. That's kind of contradictory, but I don't know why the training in sports was different. It might have just been I just didn't really care that much. And I got burnt out by it. But at least with working out, um, you get in really good shape, and it's good to be in shape. So that could be a natural end for a goal. It's like, okay, well, it's just good. It's more ideal for me to be in shape than for me to be fat. So I need to keep this up. But what would get me out of bed more is if I'm training for some event, or some you know, big goal of being able to run 10 miles, or be able to do this or this, whatever. And that's what sports are great, because there's always competitions, and duels, and tests of your skill and your ability and all that kind of stuff, and it's just a game, right? You practice during the week to prepare for the game on Saturday or Sunday. And but if there's no actual competition, then it just becomes a hobby, and it's just kind of like, it's not meaningless because you can just enjoy what you're doing. uh but you're not applying what you've learned in a constructive sense, which just feels incomplete at some level. Um, unless you have a whole different purpose for doing those things, obviously. But yeah, but all right, I've spurred out enough.